Hey everybody, it's Neil again from Heart of Texas Armory, and today I want to bring you guys a video review of my new Vostok Neptune, and this watch here features a fully machined bracelet and clasp. So join me today and find out my complete thoughts on this really cool summer themed dive watch from Vostok. Taking a look at the specs here of my Vostok Neptune, you'll see that it has a case diameter of 40 millimeters, which is a really nice size that'll work on pretty much anyone's wrist size. Width with the crown here is 43.5. Lug to lug, if you measure from that point right there at the top of the case to this point right here at the bottom of the case, you're looking at only 39 millimeters. If we do include the two protruding lugs here, we get a lug to lug distance of 44.5 millimeters. Now this watch doesn't have a true lug width in regards to how a bracelet normally connects to a case. You can see this one here has kind of an integrated bracelet. But if we measure the widest point of this bracelet right here to this point right there, I get a measurement of 21 millimeters. Case thickness is a little thick, just like most Vostoks, so you're looking at 15 millimeters, and that does include this domed acrylic crystal. The weight of the watch is 132 grams on the supplied bracelet set up for my wrist size, which is 6 7/8 inches. And you can see that the watch wears beautifully on my wrist. It's going to work for a variety of wrist sizes, which is a great thing. The construction of the case and the bracelet are made out of 316L stainless steel, which makes it pretty much rust resistant. The water resistance on this watch is rated to 200 meters, so this is a true dive watch, and this watch does have all the advanced features that most Vostok dive watches have, where the water resistance actually improves the deeper you go based off of the pressure from the water. The movement inside this timepiece is the typical in-house Vostok 2415 automatic movement. The movement features 31 hours of power reserve, it is automatic like I mentioned, and you're looking at 19,800 vibrations per hour. So it's not a very high beat movement, but what it is very rugged and reliable, and Vostok actually says you can go up to 10 years between service intervals. And this particular Neptune is an SE model or special edition, so the price on this one is a bit more than most Vostok Neptunes. You're looking at around $150 for one of these timepieces. Being a Vostok Neptune, this watch is already rather unique just because of the nature of the Neptune case design, but this SE model in particular is extra special. And the thing that you'll notice most about this watch, as you can obviously see, is the beautiful orange color scheme that it has. And that orange color scheme really lets this watch stand out, and it's definitely an attention getter. Whenever I wear this watch, I definitely get extra comments because it really does stand out, and not in a negative way. It just looks really cool and certainly makes for a wonderful summertime watch. Zooming into the dial, we can see these very impressive linear striations across this orange dial. And I'm a big fan of these striations as it does add depth and character to the dial in addition to the really cool orange color. The watch does have applied indices here around the dial, which is a nice touch. And I'll also make a special note of the applied Neptune logo here at 12 o'clock. I've always been a fan of the Vostok Neptune logo. The handset is well done. This watch being a SE model, you can see that the seconds hand actually reaches all the way out to the orange chapter ring, so that's always good to see. And the actual hour and minute hands are also a tad longer and a little bigger than what you'd see on most Vostoks. So the handset is well done and it's definitely easy to read at a glance. The lume for this timepiece is typical Vostok. It certainly takes a great initial charge and works for the first 2 or 3 hours, but it does dim rather fast, and the lume will most likely be pretty dim after around 4 or 5 hours. It is usable, but I will just say that the lume is just basically serviceable, so it's not terrible, but it's not excellent either. We do have a bidirectional bezel just like most Vostok Amphibias, and the bezel featured on this Neptune SE is a little better than most, I would say. The actual knurling is a little more aggressive than what you'd see on most Vostoks, so I find that the bezel works just fine for most tasks. Just be aware that it is a bidirectional bezel. This particular watch does not have a date complication, so a lot of people complain about Vostoks with date complications because there's no quick date set, but this one here without the date complication, you don't have to worry about that. There are a variety of finishes on the case and bracelet here. You can see the majority of the case is going to be finished in a nice high gloss polish, while the case back is brushed. You can see that the crown here is polished as well, and then the bracelet here has a combination of both finishes, both brushed and polished. The bracelet is actually very comfortable on wrist, and it's one of the best surprises I had about this particular timepiece. So most Vostoks come with pretty poor bracelets overall. Most of them are going to have press clasp. Some of the bracelets are very uncomfortable to wear. This one here is certainly a huge upgrade over your standard Vostok bracelets. You can see that it does have decent articulation and all the links are fully machined. And then the biggest upgrade in my opinion here is going to be on the clasp. So we do have a fully machined scissor clasp, which is definitely nice and makes the watch feel like a much more premium timepiece than it is. The clasp works really simply as you would expect. Now, there is no diver's extension or anything like that with this clasp. All we have here are these two plungers which you push to release the clasp. I will point out on the clasp there is one slight negative with this. Although it is very compact and makes it very comfortable when you wear this, it only has 2 micro adjustments, and that's a bit of a negative. And wrapping this video review up, we'll go ahead and quickly talk about the positives and negatives of this timepiece. So starting off with the positives, the unique design and cool color scheme on this particular Vostok Neptune are a huge positive in my opinion. The orange anodized bezel insert is really pretty, as is the orange dial, and really helps this watch stand out in my collection, and it's definitely one of the more eye-catching watches I have in my collection. I'm also a fan of the universally wearable dimensions here, so we do have a case diameter of around 40 millimeters and a rather short lug-to-lug distance. So this watch here will work on pretty much anyone's wrist size, so even if you have a really small wrist, you should be able to wear this timepiece. And even if you have a large wrist up to say close to 8 inches, it still should work just fine. Another positive would be the 200 meters of water resistance on this timepiece. So just like most Vostok Amphibia dive watches, they do have all these enhancements, including the more robust seals and gaskets that Vostok uses, as well as the unique design of the case back, the crown, and how the acrylic crystal attaches to the case. So all these enhancements here make this a true dive watch, and these watches have been tested to well beyond 200 meters. So it's a testament of the design, and it's a huge positive in my opinion. The upgraded bracelet is also a positive, so it's very comfortable to wear, and it certainly is an improvement over the standard Vostok bracelets. And finally, I'll mention the Vostok 2415 automatic movement here. So when you consider the price point of around $150 for this SE model, you're getting an automatic movement that's very reliable, very rugged, and it's a watch movement that should run pretty much without any maintenance for around 10 years. And the power reserve is 31 hours, which is not bad either for this price point. Like I mentioned, the Vostok automatic movements are not the most technical movements out there, but what they do offer is pretty much bulletproof reliability. As for the negatives, there's a few things that I like to mention. So first off, we'll talk about the loom. Like I mentioned, the loom is serviceable, but it's certainly not excellent loom. So when you compare it to say something like a Seiko dive watch, the loom on this Vostok is not even in the same category. Another minor negative I'll mention is the acrylic crystal here. To me, it's not really a big deal, but since the crystal is acrylic, it will pick up scratches. Now, you can always polish those scratches out, but if you are pretty rough on your watches, or if you just accidentally bang your watch crystal against something, you're most likely going to put a nice scratch on the crystal. So keep that in mind, that these acrylic crystals are user serviceable. You can polish out any minor scratches you might have, but they definitely are scratch magnets, and you will acquire scratches by daily wearing these. Overall, I'm a big fan of the clasp on this watch, but I mentioned it before, this is a negative in my book, but Vostok only provides 2 micro adjustments for this clasp. So getting this watch to fit your wrist perfectly is going to be a little more difficult than say another watch that might have up to 4 or 5 micro adjustments. But overall, this is a really cool timepiece with a unique color scheme, and certainly one that stands out in my collection. Even when you consider all of the negatives I mentioned, I think the positives certainly outweigh the negatives. And most of the negatives with this Vostok just adds to the quirkiness of them. And these quirks are going to be something that you're probably most likely going to be fine with. If you're a fan of Vostoks like me, you know what comes with owning one. They're going to always have quirks, but that's part of the charm. So in the end here, I definitely highly recommend this Vostok Neptune SE. And if you're in the market for a really cool and unique dive watch from Vostok, definitely check out these Vostok Neptunes. They are available for purchase for around $150 at marinome.com, and they are available in a couple of different color schemes. So if this watch does look like it would appeal to you, I would suggest heading over to Marinome and see if they have any in stock and purchase one for yourself. Guys, if you have any questions or comments on this timepiece, leave them down below and I'll do my best to answer. Guys, I'll catch you on the next one. Y'all take care.